It's time to get your pulls. Going to the comic store. Time to get your pulls. Better get those bags and balls out. Better get those pulls at the
PottyHumor.com.
Yeah.
Coming to you live from the PottyHumor.com studios, it's Getchyapulls.
Getchyapulls. Welcome to Get Your Pulls, number 60. The one that would be 5 years away from retirement if Bush and Obama didn't both suck. It's Muji.
And it's Dad.
And we're here with all of our cool political quips and comics news.
There's a new addition to Getchyapulls this week.
We're taking it a new direction.
We're going political, so tune out now. No, I'm kidding.
Exactly. We're going to try to read Batman 66 and try to convince you that it's a social commentary on today. So that's what we're going to do from now on. So fuck you. But anyways, we're not going to do that. We're going to talk about just a small bit of news that happened this week and then talk about our books. Cool Man of Steel 2 rumors, as those I'm sure going to be flying in the next few months as they're writing movies.
We're just getting started, baby.
Getting ready for casting, and nothing's going to become official probably for months, so everything's going to stay rumors. But really awesome rumor is that Bryan Cranston, of course now once very famous as just being a dentist on Seinfeld, and then being really famous for being the dad on Malcolm in the Middle, and now forever will be famous for being on Breaking Bad, has been rumored to be Lex Luthor, which is one of those things that seems almost too perfect.
Yeah, and he's expressed clear interest in doing it. I think his quote was, "I don't think there's any other choice," which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, you want people that want to play the roles, for sure.
And, a guy, he's proven he's got the range to really play anybody. And with the Walter White character, of course, has proven he can play a nasty motherfucker when he wants to. And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, especially, I think it'd be great, especially with, the tone of Man of Steel, fits in with the Nolan feel to the movies. I mean, if you're going to make Lex Luthor a more realistic, I mean, you're obviously not going to take the Lex Luthor from the movies from the 70s and 80s and put him in this universe, because he's just even though, Gene Hackman obviously great actor, but that's just an over-the-top portrayal. So I don't think they're going to do anything close to that. So if they're going to make him a little more real world, then Cranston seems like he would be a perfect guy. And looks cool bald. We already know it.
Yeah, and I think really, for what they are doing there, there's not going to be a Lionel Luthor or any of that. So I think an older Lex is probably the way to go. I loved Michael Rosenbaum's portrayal of Lex in Smallville. I loved the history that they created for that show that tied Lex and Superman's origin all the way back to the original days. But certainly that's something that's been added to the continuity in more recent years. Not something part of the continuity now in the New 52. And of course, Man of Steel has its own universe, so separate from all of that. But I think, at least in spirit, probably the best move to cast him 40 or above.
Yeah, especially if the rumor's true that they're going to make Batman in his 30s, and it's going to be an older Batman. I think it's smart too, because it seems like he'd be the type of guy that could pull off a character the way I would imagine Luthor in that universe, and the Nolan now Snyder universe, would be someone that's more because he's always famous as a businessman, but really what makes him a threat to Superman is he's also scientifically smart. He's an inventor, and so he would really just be more like an evil Steve Jobs is the way that they should go with him. Someone who has the brain power to create things that could hurt Superman
and people who will listen to him.
Yeah, exactly. So, which you could argue. I mean, there are people like that. I'd argue Steve Jobs had some evil things he did too. So, you could just take some of, a little bit of that, like real things, and obviously,
Lex is one of those villains that works. He's kind of underappreciated, in my opinion. I mean, everybody, of course, Lex Luthor, villain of Superman, but when you see him in like portrayals, it's always Lex in the mechanical suit fighting Superman in a video game.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that works for that environment, but really, it's not exploiting the best of the character, which is his mind.
Yeah, and it's really, I mean, Brian Azzarello's Luthor is really one of the perfect comic book portrayals. I mean, it's not the first time he's been portrayed that way, but he does it so well in there where, you can really buy, like, he's wrong, but you can 100% see how, like, people be like, oh, Luthor, especially, like, I really think they're going to play off the fact that the people that didn't like the movie were mad that, Superman knocked all those buildings down, stuff like that. So I think they're going to take that probably and put that, it just seems natural. They're going to put that into the plot. Probably going to be the reason that Luthor goes after him, and maybe the reason that Batman comes to confront him in the first place, to find out if he's actually cool or not. So, it seems like perfect that you would play the character in that way where Luthor's, playing himself as the hero. It almost seems like too good to be true that it's set up for that, and they can go in that direction. But I think that's exciting news. That's awesome. I mean, I totally trust, like, all the casting for, all of the Nolan and then Snyder stuff has been pretty perfect so far. So I trust that even if they don't get Cranston, they'll get someone who's pretty awesome.
Yeah, a lot of talk about Mark Strong, who played a very awesome Sinestro in the Green Lantern movie that lots of people hated, but I think even the people that hated, I wasn't one of them, but the people that did, they thought that he did an awesome job. He was a really convincing and fantastic Sinestro. He really played that character to a hilt.
Yeah.
I don't want to see him as Lex Luthor, though. I don't like the cross-pollination of that with actors in this, even if it's not supposed to be the same universe. The average Joe on the street don't know that.
Yeah, I don't really like them switching things up either. I've seen all sorts of different rumors though, so we'll see what ends up happening. I mean, they've also, if they do a younger one, I saw that that Benedict Cumberbatch that the second
Khan.
Star Trek, Khan, that he was like a possibility if they decided, just depending. I think probably now it's out the window because if they really are doing older Batman, they're obviously going to do an older Luthor too. Like they're not just going to be like, well, Superman and Batman are in their 30s, but Luthor's 25, So I think they probably will go for an older guy. But all the names have been tossed around have been like top-notch people, so I figure whatever they do, it'll be good. Then moving on, we don't really talk about comic book sales a lot on here because it's not that interesting. But just thought I would point out that this like rarely happens. I've seen it happen to Bendis before, but he also has more chances because he's generally writing 30,000 books. But Snyder had 3 of the top 5 selling books this month, and 2 of them over $100,000, which means I'm guessing he got a shit ton of money this month.
Wow.
So Superman Unchained was the top selling book for July. Superman Unchained number 2. Batman number 22 was the number 2 selling highest book, which those come out in the same week, which that's crazy. And then the Batman Annual number 2 was number 5. And then DC actually caught ground, like Marvel had been kind of pulling away, especially with, they were basically offering a number 1 of a Marvel Now book almost every month, which was really helping them. But it was really close. Marvel still won, but it was super close this month. People are obviously digging the Trinity War because Justice League and JLA were both really high again this month. So that was cool. And then Marvel's highest selling book, crazily, Guardians of the Galaxy number 5. Their top selling book for the month. So it's weird how just something being good can all of a sudden bring it to the forefront.
Yeah, I think it's probably the combination of the fact that Bendis is just killing it on that book, and the art is killing it as well. But that also the buzz around the upcoming movie, people are starting to talk about it. They want to know more about these characters, want to know more about the crazy raccoon with a gun.
Yeah.
And Guardians of the Galaxy is awesome. So if you're one of those people, jump on board. It's been fantastic. A really fun intergalactic thrill ride.
Yeah, absolutely. And even though I dropped Superior Spider-Man because I didn't think it was great, the general consensus, either A, is better, or B, people are just like, won't drop it because there are a lot of people who are just like, fuck it, I'm in for the whole run.
I gotta find out what happens. Fuck.
But I saw Superior number 13 and 14 and Superior Foes of Spider-Man like rounded out the top 10, which I thought was crazy. So even though you get like, it's really like, I mean, there is plenty of positive feedback, but I would say it's like, it's really mixed. Like a lot of people don't like it, then a lot of people do like it. Like it is surprising to me that it's still, you know, that it's still in the top 10. But selling well, so if you want Peter Parker back sooner than later, sucks for you, because that means it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, as long as the dollar signs are popping up, you know the old saying, money talks and bullshit walks. So Marvel being a business, they're going to go for the money.
Yeah, and then speaking of Guardians of the Galaxy, probably the weirdest news of the week, I think things like this are going to happen more often and be weirder, because now that Twitter exists, when things start happening and scandals or whatever you want to call them, like you get it in real time. You're just like, what the hell's happening? And that was one of the weirdest of the week. Gentleman who was hired to write the new Justice League 3000 book,
Kevin Maguire.
Kevin Maguire was fired off the book, and it was really crazy because there was no news release, nothing. There's a random tweet from him that's like, hey, I think I'm fired.
It's like, fuck, I got fired.
Yeah, he's like, I think I just got fired. And then hours later, he's like, does anybody need a book written? I need a job. And then Brian Michael Bendis is immediately like, yeah, I'm going to call you later. You know, on the internet where you can see it. And then nothing really happens for a while, and you kind of hear like, well, DC's like offered him some more projects, and he's probably going to take those things, so whatever. And then it just becomes a huge news story that like all the sites are reporting on, where apparently he was going to write the new Justice League 3000, drew the first book, and they determined, which I guess I could see the disappointment, they determined after they read the book, they wanted it, I guess, to fit more in with like what most of the books in the DC universe are now. Like they basically told him that it was like too lighthearted looking, that it was like they wanted it to look more realistic, which I think you know how artist is going to draw. It's not like artists, I mean, most of them have like one specific style. I'm not saying that they can't draw different, but I mean, you look at a book, you know, you look at like David Aja when he draws Hawkeye, it's like that's just how he draws. Like he's not all of a sudden his books aren't going to look like Jim Lee the next time. You know, so I do see where the guy would probably be mad, where he's like, well, I've been drawing for you for 30 years. You know how the fuck I draw. But he got fired, and he's been replaced. And then, but then, great news for him, he's going to be drawing fucking Guardians of the Galaxy, which is Marvel's highest selling book. So I think that worked out for him beautifully.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yes. Like I said, I mean, there were a lot of people who were like, you know, were mad. And it was another one of those, anytime DC does anything, if they cancel a book, if they change writers because it's not selling, you know, anything they do, it seems like they just get the huge backlash of the comics community where people are like, DC did it again, they fired someone. Like, people get fired from like every place all the time. And hey, like, I don't know this guy. You know, he's probably friends with, like, a large majority of people who write comics. I mean, it's a tight-knit community, so it probably doesn't make everyone mad anytime one of their friends loses a job.
If you're a comic writer, sure, like, bitch away. But if you're not in there, I mean, you're entitled to your opinion, but it's not an informed one.
Yeah, and like I said, and once again, I think it's a weird thing where, like, there's just a real negative DC backlash that's been going on, like, you know, a year after the New 52, where, I mean, they have had a lot of turnover, and there have been some people that were like, hey, this was a terrible experience of writing, so, I mean, it does add up. But even the smallest thing of just, like, this book is fucking our worst-selling book, we have to cancel it, and people are like, there you go again, canceling books, like, you know. And I feel like they kind of got the same thing on here. People are just like, hey, I believe DC would, like, fire someone from a book that they weren't happy with the way that it looked.
Yeah, I agree. I think
know?
they kind of get a bad rap for that because, you know, all businesses have to make those decisions, unfortunately. They're not popular, they're not happy, but if they want to keep making comics, they got to do that.
I used to fire people. It sucked.
Yeah, it's not a job anybody wants.
No.
You know, if you're in the comics community, like, you know, if one of the boys in wrestling gets wronged, then you usually will see a public outcry against it. So, you know, I don't see anything different with the comics community. They feel one of their buddies got screwed. They've got every right to speak it because they're informed. They know they're in the circle. They're in that community. They're in that world.
Yeah.
If you're just a guy like me and Muji buying comics with no other attachment, then, like I said, you're entitled to your opinion, but it's not an informed one.
Yeah, absolutely. But on the polls, not that many this week, but we got some. I got a couple good ones.
Yeah, gonna be a short one this
Yes.
week for sure. I had the Gypsy Joe benefit last night. in Rossville, Georgia. It went well. Thanks everybody for their support. By the way, I plugged it a couple of times here on Get Your Pulls. So, but it wore me out. So I'm lucky that I only have 2 pulls this week.
Yeah, don't worry. Next week you got plenty again, right?
Oh, I've got like 8 this week. And
Yeah, I have-
we'll have back to the long box. It'll be
I think I have 7, so you'll probably get a show next week that's too long.
Yeah,
So we
all
come
the bells
forward.
and whistles next week.
Maybe it'll be perfect weather and Todd will be able to drive over here.
Possibly.
It could be a giant week. We'll see. But we got all new X-Men number 15. It's pretty decent. That's probably what I would say in general was one of the more weaker issues. I kind of retreaded some of the things that have happened so far. I mean, for a lot of the issue, which was Cyclops and Iceman decide they just need to get the hell out of the school, so they steal Wolverine's, another one of his cars. This time they steal his Jeep, and he's just like, we've seen that joke already in here, the stealing of Wolverine's vehicles. But that happens, but then like the big major plot thread is Jean Grey's able to read, Future Beast's mind and figure out, that he's like once had feelings for her as a young kid. So then she goes and confronts, her age Beast from the past about it. And so I won't ruin whatever happens, but that happens. So that's really the more interesting thing that happens in it. On to my DC books. Got Detective Comics number 23. So basically Batman is in a fight with Wrath, the new villain. And it's cool.
Wrath. I like the way he looks.
He looks pretty badass.
It's hard to really you're talking about anytime you take a stab at adding a new villain to the Batman mythology.
Yeah, it's like good luck.
Yeah, so I don't know if this guy's going to have any legs. I don't know if he's going to stick around, but the costume design's cool. What we know about his motivation thus far is cool.
Yeah, his regular character's cool. It's another billionaire that's, going up against Wayne. So it's really he's going up against Wayne, and then Batman's going up against Wrath. So even though they don't know it, Wayne knows, but Wrath doesn't know that he and his alter ego are fighting the same guy, basically. So it's pretty awesome. And then our Green Arrow number 23. It's the end of this arc finally. It seems like it's been going on for a really long time, but it's like the end of Lemire's first arc, and it's pretty cool. Basically, we get some couple new Caros show up, and guess what? They shoot arrows. If you're a huge fan of a universe where everyone is badass at shooting an arrow, this is the book for you. It seems like it's almost like this Green Arrow is somehow like Harry Potter or something, where like anyone that was ever good at shooting an arrow, like were the same age and went to the same college, like they were part of the being a great archer revolution, and now they're just all out everywhere doing everything. It's like anytime somebody shows up, it's like, we went to school together, or we were friends when we were kids. Why the fuck did you also, like, what made you also become a great archer, you asshole? But there's more to it than that, but that's my dumb review of it. It's every time I read it, I'm like, there's a new guy that's really great at shooting arrows. They keep popping up. But there is like a lot of mythology and stuff explored in this. Remember the last issue, you find out that Oliver may have a half-sister roaming around, and try to get to the bottom of this issue, so it's cool. And then Jeff Lemire's Trillium started this week. Trillium number 1 from Vertigo, drawn and written by Lemire, and it's really cool. It's a crazy book. It's seen DC doing this like a little bit more often lately with different things. I remember when Capullo and Snyder for that Court of Owls issue had the pages drawn upside, had the page that was drawn upside down just because they want to be weird. And this one is crazy. It's from the point of view of 2 different characters that meet up at the end of it, and the book's like readable from both sides. So you read the first story, and then when it's over, it pops upside down, and then there's a separate cover for the back of the book, and if you read it from that way, then the story ends. You gotta flip it, So it's 2 different stories, where they just kind of connect, but it's instead of just doing them like back to back, they did it where the book flips over and you have to read the stories from different sides.
No,
So
that's interesting. I mean, why not? Comics
Yeah.
is a visual medium, so why not play with that when you can?
yeah, why not test it out? They get hit with 2 fucking barcodes, those bastards. But I wonder how many people accidentally paid for 2 trilliums this week. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. There's barcodes on both sides of the book. So, but it was really interesting. It was the first chapter of the book, and I liked it. He advertised it as a love story that's weird. So, I mean, it's kind of easy in a way to kind of see what's going to happen with the people, but it's still cool. The next book, Satellite Sam #2, came out from Fraction and Howard Chaykin. And it was interesting. I gotta tell you, when the book was announced, it's only 2 issues in. It's not blowing me away the way a lot of Image books have. Like, I like it.
I really liked the first issue, so I'm interested to see where they went with that one. That made it.
Well, I feel like at the end of the first issue, the reveal that they did, like, they really don't touch on that until, like, the last page of the second issue. It's just, like, if you know, like, basically the show, they're doing a TV show. If you haven't read the first one, then spoilers, but, as always. But the Satellite Sam, the star of the TV show, the actor who plays him dies. So they grab his kid, because he looks just like a younger version, and throw him in to be Satellite Sam on the show. And basically, like, the majority of this book deals with the producers of the show, like, wondering if they're going to cancel the show or not, and talking about it, and having these business meetings. And then which is fine if they're going to tell, like, the slow story, but you just get, like, a very small taste of, Satellite Sam's kid, the new Satellite Sam, and his, like, trying to figure out what the fuck was up with his dad. That seems like the small part of, like, this issue. It's just it just moved. It's Fraction. It's not, like, bad, but it just moved kind of slow to me. And there's a shit ton of stuff, too. Like, the way, also, because it's in black and white, it seems like it's, like, harder to read because, like, the way that the bubbles are for, like, they kind of blend in. Like, there's not an actual, the dialogue isn't really, like, trapped off. It's just kind of, like, all over the page. So it seems like work to, like, make sure that you're reading things in the right order just based on the way that goes. It's still interesting. I mean, it could just all of a sudden be great the next issue, but whereas Lazarus 2 issues in, I'm just like, this is some of the best shit. I'm very
Page
happy.
Turner.
Same way I was with Saga, same way I was with Fatale. Satellite Sam it's been good, but it hasn't, like, kicked me in the balls the way a lot of the Image books have that I've been getting. But still good, and still got to check out Sex Criminals next book by Fraction, because it looks awesome too. So
it does,
and it's already been being quoted by people. Like Brubaker said, it's the best comic he's read in 10 years, and
it came out this week, didn't it?
No, it comes out next month. It's a September release. I think first week September. So
cool.
That'll get bought. But and then we got Fatale #16, my last book, which is really good. It's always really good. That's all I can really see. This one you get, like, a little bit more of, like, Josephine, like, everything she kind of does in the book, like, up to this point, you're kind of like, she, like, uses the dudes that she's, like, there. It's like, Brubaker's really kind of, like, flipped the script, where generally when you see, like, a woman who, like, kind of, like, uses her looks to, like, get the best of men, like, she's a villain. Like, that's the way they've classically been portrayed in, like, all sorts of media, where if something bad happens to them, it's like, oh, they deserve it because they did whatever. But in this, it's not. You find out she just takes advantage of the fact that the dudes are fucking think she's hot, so they'll do anything for her, and unfortunately she's in these situations where she almost, like, has to, like, she doesn't want to, but she's just like, well, fuck it, I don't want to die, so I'll let them protect me, even if it ends up fucking them over.
Oh, Josephine's an awesome character.
Yes, but in this issue, it's the first time where you don't 100% feel that's the case, because in this one, if you remember the last issue, they found her, and she's lost some of her memories. Like, she doesn't remember a lot of things, or at least, she's playing it up that way. Like, I think it's, you don't know for sure. But she's brought in by this band that's wanting to record some music, and then basically she She does it with multiple members of the band in this issue, which is obviously going to be a huge problem when they find out about each other. So it's like really the first time where she's done something that you just be like, oh, well, that's shady. Like, why would you do that? You know, everything else, it always seems like she's had like good intentions, and maybe she does, but that's never good when you do it with two people that are friends and they don't know about it.
Well, especially
they're inevitably
when
going to like
your
kill each other.
poontang is like
drives people to kill people for you. So I see bad things. I see bad things happening between those two characters in the future. Not to mention one of the characters, his girlfriend lives in the house that they're all living in too. So, but yeah, it was really good, really interesting, and they've introduced like a really awesome character too. There's basically like a guy who looks like he's a serial killer that knows there's something weird about Josephine, but it's like she's kind of like his ultimate trophy. Like he's not chasing her down because, you know, they need her for some ritual or because she fulfills some, you know, thing. Like in the last ones, it was like just all the cults wanted her because, you know, they wanted to take her power and use her power. Like it seems like this dude's just like, I like to murder people, and murdering her would be the ultimate like pad on my resume. So that's like a side story that's going on as he's looking for. So FATALE gets more interesting as it goes along. So it's awesome.
Yeah, really excited to see what the future holds for that book. It started as a limited series. They've recently announced it is going to be ongoing till they're done. So that's
basically the Winter
fantastic.
Soldier's demise was to the good of FATALE because he decided he was going to keep writing it instead of doing anything else. And also, Brubaker's got, I believe it's in November, Velvet, his new book coming out, which will also be a must get. So I need to make more money.
Yeah, you and me both.
Yes.
Well, I only had the two, of course, and to mixed results. I won't say I hated anything I got this week, but Avengers number 17, fine single issue in and of itself. We learn more about RAID, the science division of AIM. We learn more about the crazy things that are overtaking the Earth from the evolution bombs and how we're essentially at 0 hour now as far as this world catastrophe. And we take essentially 17 issues to determine that we need more Avengers.
Of course.
So,
I mean, isn't almost everyone is in some Avengers group?
yeah, well, they recruited 2 space gods to also be in the Avengers now. That was the Ex Nihilo and the Abyss, the 2 people who sent the fucking catastrophic evolution bombs down in the first place, are recruited by Captain America to join the Avengers to stop it.
Yeah, it's like, who are they going to start adding? They're going to be like, hey, there's Caterpillar Tommy. Like, he just is really good at exterminating caterpillars from the world. Like, he's an Avenger now. You know, like, who's left? Who's not an Avenger?
So, allegedly, the 17 issues were a prelude to Infinity, which starts next week, which I am excited about. However,
Got that on the pull list?
Yes, I will have to say, if it's not a wildly awesome reason, and this book don't pick up some steam, and I love Jonathan Hickman, I loved his Fantastic Four run, I think he's brilliant, I think he's onto some great ideas, this might have to get dropped in favor of something else, because...
It's low man on the poll?
Yeah, it is the lowest man on my pull list right now. I mean, the digital code aftermarket certainly helps its value, since essentially I haven't paid very much money at all for these in the grand scheme of things when you factor that in, but still, you know, I need space on my pull list. There's a lot of great shit that I'm passing on to continue to get this, which ain't really tickling my pickle.
That's true, man. I don't know if I can name what's the lowest on my... I've really cleaned up the list the past few weeks. Like, Superior Spider-Man got dropped. I don't know what's the lowest on my pull list. Because all these new Image books coming out, it's like I'm probably going to have to drop at least 1 or 2 things to make it work. So, I don't know.
Tough times. And then Villains Month we have coming up.
I mean,
And Walking Dead goes to two times a month. What else are they trying to do to break us in September and fucking bankrupt us?
Yeah, if we get those in Villains Month, I've heard that there's... I think what I've read, basically, is that they're going to be able to fulfill... They're only going to be able to fill some books as little as 50% of the orders with like the 3D covers. So you may get a book, which if you do end up getting a book that doesn't have the 3D cover, it's going to be $2.99 instead of $3.99. So whatever, but at least that's what they're saying. Maybe they're lying to try to get more people to order them in advance. Who knows? Because apparently that is a business move they sometimes make. But they're saying that some books it's as little as 50%, and all the books like it's no more than like 70%. So at least 30% of the books of certain titles, all the way up to 50, aren't going to be like what people ordered. So I think it's probably going to be a situation where like if it's on your pull list, you're going to get it, but they're going to be really hard to come by on the shelves if they're telling the truth. So,
interesting.
Yeah, so that's going to be kind of crazy. But yeah, September, Double Walking Dead. We're going to get, it's Villains Month, so I mean that's like an extra,
Yeah, I mean it's the
5 or 6
collectible
books.
Madcap month that just like Zero month was. I mean, we would even we find some deals sometimes. You find a couple Zero issues for $1 or $2, and then a bin a week or two later. We gathered as many of those Zero issues as we could to read just because it was fun.
And then Forever Evil's that month. So
I know, and I kind of really want to add that, but there's no fucking way right now. So Avengers might get fucking dropped in favor of Forever Evil, to be quite honest. Like, that could very well happen.
Is Forever Evil...
It's Jeff Johns, man.
Is it going to be entirely its own event, or is it contained within... like books that are coming out?
It ties into everything in the New 52 because it's apparently a status quo changing thing, but it is its own self-titled miniseries. So, you get Forever Evil 1 through whatever, and then the books will have some tie-ins too. But
that's cool. I also saw happening really soon is also like the Battle of the Atom.
I know, and they did that shit that they did back in the fucking Avengers versus X-Men. Not Avengers, the Dark Reign, Dark Avengers versus X-Men on like the Utopia storyline. It's like the first one and the last one are extra books.
Yeah. And
then all the ones in the middle are tie-ins. And fuck you, Marvel. That's annoying.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. And I just don't see myself splurging for the extra books just almost out of principle. But then you get Uncanny. So you're going to get a piece of it. I'm going to get a piece of it with all the X-Men.
We're going to have to get them. I mean, it's just another thing that they've fucking looped us into.
It's and then a couple of them are in multiple books. I think you get 2 issues of Uncanny, and I get 2 all-new X-Men's that are going to be tie-ins, and I get 1 Wolverine the X-Men.
There's 1 X in the city.
I think there's 1 X in the city, and then there's the 2 extras. So it's we're going to get 5/8 of the story, so it's almost like we've been gouged for $12 extra by those dicks.
Yeah, I hate when they do that shit. Especially to the longtime X-Men fans.
Yeah, remember
back to the 80s here, people.
Remember the 90s where people did that all the time and that helped bring comics down? Where you're like, I want to read this Batman story. Oh, I better get anyone who's ever come in contact with Batman's book this month, because if not, I can't. Same for X-Men. It's let's have stories where... it's a 10-parter, and it goes through 6 different books, because fuck you. That's
I have the Battle of the Atom checklist right here.
What we got?
Battle of the Atom #1 in September. All new. Adjectiveless X-Men, or X in the City, as we call it here on Getchyapulls.
Yes.
Uncanny Wolverine and the X-Men. Then in October, you get all new. No, there's 2 tie-ins to the Adjectiveless. There's another one. And then Uncanny X-Men 13... Wolverine and the X-Men, and then X-Men Battle of the Atom #2 ends the event.
Those dicks.
Yeah, that's some real bullshit.
Well, yeah. But it sucks. All new X-Men, Wolverine and X-Men are both awesome. Because if I had to drop a book, that almost makes me want to drop those, but I can't because they rule.
Yeah, it's a really, it's really painful. Really painful. I hate you, Marvel.
It's a real Sophie's choice. It's a Muji's choice that I've been put into here.
It is. Well,
anyways, at least we'll have to make those. Oh, you got 1 more.
Oh, yeah, I have other books. Sorry, I just went on this fucking tangent bitching about Avengers that led to this discussion. Yes. But I actually had a good book that I really liked. And like I said, I'm not shitting on that Avengers. It's a fine issue, but it's just, overall, it's not what I was hoping for.
Dude, you would shit on a homeless before you'd shit on a comic. Which, hey, I mean, that'd be funny. I'd be down for that.
Horrible, horrible thing to say, Muji. Green Lantern number 23. Nice issue. Really liking this Robert Van Didion, Billy Tan team.
Billy Tan. Probably once a master of kickball, now just good at drawing comics. Billy Tan.
Really reminds me of the Green Lantern animated series, which makes me happy. They've reunited the Hal and Kilowog buddy cop element, which has been out of the Green Lantern books for a while, but they found to great avail in the animated series. Really something that worked about that, so they're putting it here in this new arc of the comic. Hal is trying to deal with these young Green Lanterns who almost got themselves killed in their first big battle with Larfleeze. But, you know, things are looking promising for him. They find that there's been a prison break on Oa.
It's looking less promising when they're almost getting killed by Larfleeze. He's like, dude, if Larfleeze is going to kill you, then fucking just never look Sinestro in the eye, motherfucker.
Right, yeah. No doubt. But there's a female criminal named Nolange who escaped.
Like Beyonce's sister Solange,
Yes.
except for Nolange.
Yes.
Nice.
And we find out she's a former Star Sapphire, of course. Escaping puts her back in contact with her ring. Hal tracks her down. They have a big knockdown, drag-out fight through her Star Sapphire energy. When she snatches Hal up, he's connected to their little world mind type thing and sees what's going on and finds out that this villain, the Relic, who's going to be introduced in Villains Month next month, has what they're calling the Lightsmiths in a corner. That would be Saint Walker, the leader of the Blue Lanterns, former Green Lantern, and now the White Lantern, the healer, Kyle Rayner.
The healer.
And Carol Ferris, Hal's love interest. And when he scans his ring for her life force, he cannot find it. He goes immediately bolting like a bat out of hell to find out what's going on. And we find out in Green Lantern 23.1 from Villains Month, Relic, Fall of the Lightsmiths. What's going to happen? I don't know, but some quality Green Lantern from a new creative team that's really starting to hit their stride.
Nice.
And that's all I got. But next week is a big one. We got Infinity starting up. We've got Walking Dead. We've got... God, there's so much. So much coming out next week.
Yeah, we have Walking Dead. I have Batman. I have Saga makes its, I'm sure, triumphant return.
Yes, Saga is back next week for sure.
We have lots of books.
It's going to be a jam-packed edition with all the bells and whistles, so thanks for bearing with us in the abbreviated version. I'm sure you're happy to hear it. Maybe give you a little extra time in your day if you were dedicating a whole hour to get your pulls. Now you got about 20 more minutes to go do something productive, so go!
Yeah, absolutely. So go. First, make sure that you're not buying the first part of a 9-book tie-in that will make you get 6 different pulls. But get your pulls.